Good evening. This is a special report, and this is part 4, folks. But first, I want to get on to something I heard this morning. It didn't sound right, and may have caught the FBI in something. And it was um, ABC's morning show, Good Morning America, that said it. Now, are they going to redact what they said, retract what they said? I don't think they caught it. And it took me, I'm going to have to let you listen to it for yourself because um, unless you hear it, you can say, "Oh, Ellie, it's not there. It's not there." I caught it. I saved it, and I'll let you hear it. What it is about that Utah man? Okay, now I have to say he was threatening Joe Biden and others. This was over a 300-pound man that used a cane, needed help to walk. The FBI did a raid on him. They did shoot him. They said he was armed. Now, he does have a lot of guns. Yeah, probably had a gun on him. They said he was armed. Most, uh, they said first they banged on the door and they couldn't get through the door, so they went through the window. And of course, by then he had a gun and probably was going to ready to fire on them. Now, um, I'm not saying he was right, but then normally you don't move the body, is what everybody's saying. Well, wait a minute. Now, when I had a gentleman die across the street in his car, they removed him and they put him in my yard for hours. So to me, that's not unusual. What's unusual is that's over 300 pounds of body weight to move. Now, a friend from his church said that this man wasn't really all that dangerous. Maybe he made, and I'm still having the same issues. Hopefully, I can get it up before while I give this report. Um, so his friend said there's a lot of threats made online, but he didn't think he was capable of actually going and doing anything. He needed help to move around. So to me, that it kind of didn't make a lot of sense that they stormed his house and ready to shoot him. Oh boy, come on, come up, please, because I really want you guys to see this. Let me try something here. Okay. So here it is. So I want you guys to listen very close. And when I hear it, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to back it up and I'm going to let you listen to it again. So here we go.
It's about the Utah man who was killed by FBI agents as they tried to arrest him for threatening to assassinate President Biden. Lola Lange has the details.
Just hours before President Biden touched down in Utah, the FBI says its agents killed a man who was...
Did you hear it? I'm going to back it up, and then I'll tell you.
Killed a man who was threatening his life. The FBI says its agents killed a man who was...
Okay, the FBI sent an agent to kill the man, not to raid or detain him, take him in, ask him questions. They sent an FBI agent to kill the man. And then all of a sudden we hear, oh, it was a big raid. They did the door and they did the window and they stormed in. He had a gun. So did you hear it? I'm going to play it again.
Before President Biden touched down in Utah, the FBI says its agents killed a man who was threatening his life. 2 FBI officials tell ABC News that 75-year-old Craig Robertson was fatally shot as agents tried to arrest him for threatening to assassinate the president. And
Did you guys hear? Did you guys hear it? Karen, let me know. Did you hear that? They sent a FBI agent to kill this guy. Then they say, then FBI stormed the his house and shot him because he was armed. Huh? Yeah, no, 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 no. Something's wrong. I think there needs to be an investigation at this point to the FBI and what they did. This man was not capable of going and shooting anybody. He needed help. Maybe somebody was going to help him do this, but I don't think so. Um, so with that, I'm going to move on to the report. Um, I'm oh boy, I'm just going to end it there and get on with uh, this other exposing the elite because I know there's a lot of people here today that's waiting to hear this. Yeah, yeah. I hope everybody hears it, and I hope everybody shares this. And I do hope everybody does share today because this is a lot of info, maybe stuff you know, maybe stuff you don't know. I'm going to expose the elite. Now, let's learn about the politicians now and what they've been doing. And let's start with the most recent with Obama and the paddle border. And Linda G got a hold of me, and I did have this on my list for number one because it's the most recent. And what is odd with this is this gentleman knew how to swim really well. Not only that, but he was found in 2 foot of water. The autopsy said he didn't have any bruises or anything that was happening, and that was it. I wanted to hear about no water in his lungs, or was there water in his lungs? Did he drown? More to it, but as far as I know, they're not releasing anything because of who Obama is. And we're only gonna, I don't know if Linda G is in here. We're gonna have to wait because I can speculate a lot because of what was written in a book by Obama's fiance before Michelle, that of his sexual preferences, that maybe this chef knew something, maybe not, maybe it was just an accident, folks, but I'm not going to speculate until there's a lot more that comes out on this, because if I'm caught lying, I'm going to have to or caught untrue, I'm going to have to come back and I'm going to have to redact what I say until I can get a little bit more info on this. Let's wait and see, and I'm really good at waiting to see until we find out exactly what's going on. And it may be years, folks. Look at Kennedy when he was in a car accident with that woman. It took decades before we really knew exactly what happened. It may take a few days, it could take weeks, it could take months, it could take a few years. But until we find out a lot of more details, and I know they're going to redact their stuff, it's going to be a black page. Because remember, I was going over the boys on the track, and this last report that would have given us all the answers was black. The whole thing was black. Because why? They don't want us to know what really happened. All right. So I want to move on because I have a lot, and I might read very fast tonight, because I want to get through all of the politicians and what they've done. And like I said, some of this info you may know, some may not. This is pulled from not only our media, but Peter Schweizer. This is pulled from released documents, and info when they had investigations done on them. So this is very credible. So I want to get Mitch McConnell out of the way, and it may seem long. What I'm having to say may seem very long, but this is the actual report, folks. And in order for you to be able to say, I know everything what is going on, you got to have the whole report. Now, McConnell, if you don't know who he is, he's a top Republican in the Senate, and he's a senator from the state of Kentucky. Now, he's very interesting, folks, and I did find this very interesting. And I've even had Democrats throw him in my face, saying, "Look what Mitch McConnell did." Well, yeah, I know what Mitch McConnell did. And then when I tell them everything I know, they're very shocked. Oh, I didn't know that about him. Now, in the early 1990s, he married Elaine Chao. And of course, um, um, Elaine Chao was the transportation secretary in the Trump administration. She's been active in the Republican circles for decades. Her family, originally from Taiwan, but her father wasn't educated in the mainland of China, and a man who would become the premier of China in the 1990s. So that's kind of interesting backstory. So you know that her family was somebody, and they have the shipping business called Foremost Shipping. And Foremost Shipping was, relatively a small shipping company in the 1990s. But then Elaine Chales marries Mitch McConnell in 1993. And he takes a trip to Beijing with um, his father in law, where there are guests of Chinese state higher ups. Now, I cannot prove it was a CCP, but it was higher up in the state of Beijing. And the state, and not only that, but Chinese State Shipbuilding Corporation, which of course builds ships. That's logical, and big tankers, but also builds a lot of military ships for the Chinese Navy. This is really important because um, uh, he spent a lot of time visiting Beijing, because the only 4 years after the massacre at Tiananmen Square, and really no American politicians were actually going over there, he went. And since then, the government has been helping the business grow. So today, fast forward today, we are um, with the Foremost Shipping Company Group is the largest shipping company in all of the ships. Massive cargo ships now. You see. Um, you see a lot of them in the port of off the coast of Los Angeles. Um, Big, massive ships, all those big ships of the McConnell Chao family business have built by the Chinese government. The financing of all those ships are financed and state owned by China banks. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ships. And not only that, but remember, I said military ships. All of that largely provided by the Chinese government, and a lot of the contracts they uh, are for shipping goods around Asia Pacific region are from Chinese. They're state-owned shipping company. So the problem is that Mitch McConnell were to do anything that would piss off Beijing or the CCP, they could destroy the family shipping business overnight. Reasons Mitch McConnell, he will say things that aren't critical of China, but he will not support legislation that will challenge China, Beijing, or anything with the Chinese military. This is why, folks. And as you could see, this should be a credibility issue on his part. And you could see why he's where he's at. Who put him there? Who voted him up in there? The Democrats didn't seem to mind. McConnell and the Chow family has this relationship. that is very close. And he is married, they say, deeply into the family. In one case, his father-in-law gave him a gift of between uh, five, 5 million one time and 25 millions another time. Why? Because he'd done such a great job for the Chow shipping company. Huh. Doesn't that just blow your mind? Did you guys know about this? All right, let's go to Diane Feinstein. And we found out she fell and she was okay. Now, a lot of you heard, um, she was at one point the mayor of San Francisco. She set up the sister city. Not only that, between San Francisco and um, uh, helped build up the city of Shanghai when she was mayor. Now, this I know because I lived out there. And so I'm giving you all the stuff I knew when I was out there, as well as reports and documents. The China, so, it's always important for us to separate Chinese government from Chinese people. Now, was she a big part of this? Um, what we heard out there was her family had close ties in Shanghai, but with the Chinese government. Now, her husband, who has a background in investment banking, broke into the Chinese market big time. Not that he stole anything; it just he got in it, uh, and he was helped by the Chinese government. And a lot of them took a look at the business partnership as one that could help them in San Francisco, where she was mayor. And throughout the years, her husband has done business over and over and over again to where it did spread and it did get bigger over the years. And of course, it was a courtesy with the help of the Chinese government. Now, um, between these deals and her duties in 2010, she's a chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And not only that, but couple dozen people that are policymakers in Washington D.C. Get access to the secret access she has, and she made sure of it. What's that mean? They knew the people around her, Pelosi and Schumer and a few others, probably even Mitch McConnell, those that she was in top with the Intel Committee, but top political elite, knew that she was doing this. Did they tell her no? No, they didn't say anything. And so she was a chairman at one time of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Her husband is partners with an investor with a Chinese computer company called Legend, which ends up selling laptops to the U.S. military. You remember that? And they were hacked. Well, get this. They say there was maybe a couple hundred. It was sold to the Marine Corps, and um, just a couple hundred. Well, come to find out, that's the couple hundred we know of that they let us know about for just then. But she had been doing this for many, many years. They don't go beyond the few hundred that they caught them with. So not only that, they got a huge millions of dollars check after they had got these into the Marine Corps. I mean, it's a little bit outrageous, folks, but you know what? It's just par for the course for her. And it's many businesses that she was into. So her and her husband were a lot into the computer business, from San Francisco to Shanghai, and then of course into Beijing, and also with her family and her husband being close to the military government. Hi, Ed. There's Ed, my favorite military guy. Now, um, now Dianne Feinstein is simply um, uh, went on the advice of the FBI, but we don't know what that is. All the documents are black, and it's ridiculous that they are going to black it out. From and this is from 2015 on, folks. Now think who was in charge in 2015. That was still the Obama administration, and we know that 10,000 um, um, people could have had, and or military members could have had these laptops close to it. That's the only thing that was uncovered was 10,000 laptops. So what military members do we really know, and how many are still out there? Now, she even, when we take a look with Tiananmen Square with her, she was also like Mitch McConnell, where it had a huge increase of business after Tiananmen Square when they wouldn't say anything. If it wasn't for a few independent news sources, we wouldn't have seen Tiananmen Square and everything that was happening there. And of course, since they wouldn't do no hearings on it, they wouldn't talk about it, they wouldn't respond to it. Of course, all of a sudden, we see the millions being poured into her account. This was a very lucrative deal. And then shortly after, we started finding out of her business dealings between San Francisco and uh, into China. And then when she was put on the Senate Intel Committee, how convenient, huh? How convenient. Um, now, quite a few of these people, I want to say, um, with the Senate Intel Committee, I think 4 or 5 years, her and her husband were allowed to have all these ties with China. Uh, you know, if I were the Chinese government, I'd be taking big advantage of this. And of course, she's saying, "Oh, it was only my husband." You remember all the reports? Only my husband. He was doing business over there. I don't have nothing to do with what he's doing. And then we started hearing about what? The butler, the driver, and all of them basically having dealings with China. Um, so you have you run up the chain from her to her to I'm going to say to start with her driver, her servant, the people that I can't say servants, people that worked for her. A lot of them disappeared quickly. A lot of them were from China. Some were from. They say even the people from Japan just disappeared. Certainly with a certain level of clearance that she had. Anyone that they came in contact with that would report you, well, we find out with the Clintons, we call that Arkancides. What were they, or do we even know? Or was it China side? Nobody knows. A lot of them disappeared. A lot of them committed suicide. A lot of them could be in re education camp. But there's about 10 of them that are gone. We're talking how many politicians have been paid off? It's hard to know. But I think Rumsfeld, who said, you know, who, you don't know what you don't know. I think basically, why didn't he just come out and say it? I don't know what I don't know. Or do I know? Do I know what's really, did Rumsfeld know what was going on? How many top elite knew of just, this is just Feinstein and Mitch McConnell so far. And so many um, uh, people that leave Congress or leave Senate. There are at least 23 Republicans and Democrats who are lobbying in Washington, D.C. on behalf, not just Chinese companies, but Chinese military and intel linked to companies of, with China. Now, think on that. Now, let me read that again. There's at least 23 Republicans and Democrats who are no longer senators and congressmen that are now lobbying for Chinese companies into our country. Don't you think we should know who these are? Some of them are making millions of dollars, and some of them we are now even looking at their kids when they don't want. Look at Hunter Biden, his kid. Look at Nancy Pelosi, her kid. There's so many of their kids that are lobbyists for China now, and of course they're not doing nothing wrong, right? The Chinese, they could tell the difference of what they want to know and who has the info, what they know, what businesses they are in, and do you really want, let's say your granddaughter of 5 years old receives a big payment from China. Do you really want her locked up? Is that a threat that's coming from China at this point? Now, I don't want to say that. But you have to wonder if how deep business and deep business with military contracts that our senators, congressmen are a part of. If not, they're lobbying with their kids and their grandkids to help China into what to get military contracts into our in our country and around the world. And if you got 23 former members that are doing this, Mitch McConnell, leader of the Republican Senate, Dianne Feinstein, you can only imagine there are a lot more. These are two we know about, and I mentioned a few others. What about Sawwell, and Fang Fang? And they're allowing it, folks. They're allowing it. And I would rather, he's not really a political elite, but obviously we're seeing a financial bond between the 23 and more, their kids and their grandkids. How many Congress and senators have sold us out to China and the CCP? Now, what about George Bush? You know, with George Bush, um, he did got very good deals in China, courtesy of the Chinese government. In a position today where Neil Bush, George Bush's brother, is frankly a shill for the government. There's no other way to say it. And he set up George Bush Center for the Study of U.S. China Relations, and it's named after his father. So you don't think that even George Bush wasn't tied up in China when he was in office, or his or Junior, any of them. They haven't even looked into Jeb Bush yet. We haven't looked. Is that what they were all whispering about at the funeral? Because get this, a few days before the funeral, all this information started coming out. And there was a book made by Peter Schweizer of exposing China's dealings with senators, congressmen, and ex-presidents. And yeah, and all of a sudden, oh boy, they're all having little notes, and they're all whispering, and they all look worried. Could that have been it? That they were exposed for being a part of the Chinese government and helping them out? Um, Nancy Pelosi. This is another one. I probably don't agree with Nancy Pelosi a lot. I don't like her. But early on in her career, she was actually an outspoken. She was, her and Hillary Clinton were a big part of um, protests. And, some of them, they were in the vicinity. I can't say they were in the protests. They were in the vicinity of the 1969 um, protest and 1975, I believe, protest for bringing in communist. Communist is for the United States type thing. Her husband and her son started looking for deals in China at late 2000s. Uh, and they had an investment fund 80 of money that was deals in mainland China and had other business interests. And her son got involved with several companies that were looking for deals in China, not just China, but Beijing, with a part of the CCP. Now, the Olympics, right? Uh, are on basically, people might forget that in 2008, the Summer Olympics were in Beijing. So in 2007, Nancy Pelosi wanted a boycott of the Olympics until China offered her a big lump sum of money to basically an ownership of limousine companies. And it was run by her husband, her son, and a few of their friends. And then what it did was they got all the money for all the limousines for the higher ups for the Olympics, but not only that, to be able to run a limousine service in Beijing for the Chinese government. The VIPs need to be shuttled around in Beijing Olympics, of course. And of course, of anything that has to do now with any Olympics, she has got the rights to the limousine service via the CCP. What about Visa? A Visa card you guys got? Yeah. What about MasterCard? Most of your credit cards are owned by Nancy Pelosi, and she has got a lot of the head offices for these MasterCard, Visa, uh, whatever they want to call them, the ones that they're associated with, and the head offices are out of Beijing. And of course, China gets a little bit of a kickback for it. And she says, we have larger issues that we have to deal with. So we have to get along with Beijing and China, she said. Well, wait a minute until it came to climate change. And then all of a sudden, Nancy Pelosi oh, we don't want to talk to Beijing. We don't want to talk to the CCP. And we don't want to restrict them unnecessarily. Oh, why? Because look at all the businesses she is doing with in Beijing and China mainland with the CCP, and even uh, her son is now on his own and doing his own business with um, China. So is this? It's bizarre. Is this getting? Now you're starting to see the picture. And she was the she was um, in charge of the Congress. And of course, she would shut everybody up. No wonder she was threatening people in the hallways on certain resolutions that was put before Congress on China, or even anything that had to do with the CCP, anything that had to do with any of the companies that the top political elite had any business with. Whenever they were going to be looked into, those resolutions fell to the bottom of the stack, and she made sure of it. And not only that, but she's the one that gave the approval for China coal plants in Australia and fought for it to be so. Politicians not corrupted by China that are um, now up and coming in politics today. Yes, there are. There are some. Do I know who they are? Not yet. You can tell. How many of them are we looking at that? There's 12 Republicans, 12 to 24 Republicans that will side with Democrats. And we have 8 to 12 of them with about 50 Democrats that will never oppose any bill that's put before Congress or Senate. I'm ahead of myself. Um, well, what about Joe Biden, folks? Um, everything coming out on Joe Biden with him and China and him and Burisma. And, we're going to hear all about that as it's coming out. And I really didn't want to get too far into um, uh, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, because it's all over the news right now. Otherwise, I would have told you all about it. And I did do a show on Burisma. It could be found on Facebook. Um, uh, and so, how many more do we really see that are wholly funded by the Chinese military, Chinese intelligence, or just top officials, ambassadors, and so on? Where does the money go? Um, you know, all of the bank accounts, what you see with and the Clintons did it the same way. If you funnel the money, it goes bank to bank to bank. Like with the Iran Contra, when they got the money, it would go into little cash payments. They did kind of get cash payments. Then they would funnel it so much money to this bank, that bank, this bank, that bank. Sometimes there was 5 banks in a city of like 50 people here in Arkansas. Really? Why did we need that many banks? Well, every single one of them they had an account in. And so is that what they did? And then we had, Cyprus was a big one. They found 2 seriously corrupt banks in Cyprus. It was funneling money for politicians. Did we know? Well, who ran over there? None other than Bill Barr. And you know what we hear about it? Was there a report? No, the banks were shut down. Everybody was silenced, and the documents, guess what? They were all black. Why didn't Bill Barr expose them? Well, what I know about Bill Barr is he was not only a Bush lawyer, but he worked for the Bush family in politics, and then he was carried over um, into the Clinton era. as a kind of like an AG type guy. Well, then, of course, they switched over to Asa Hutchinson. Asa Hutchinson was a Republican, but he was covering up for the escapades of we don't know. We don't know. They were sending so many documents here and boxes and boxes of documents that are sent to lawyers, and the lawyers will pick them up. Now, tell me if this sounds familiar with these documents at the Biden. Well, they'll leave them in a garage, or they'll leave them out by the door, and or they'll, their lawyers can always go in their houses whenever they want, and they get these, and the lawyers go through and they redact everything, and then they kindly slip everything back in. And that leaves the FBI to be in the dark, or even the Department of Justice to find out. They always assumed that it was done by investigators, FBI or the CIA. But this is something that we heard that Bill Barr may have been a part of with the Iran Contra and everything else that the Clintons had, because he was known as in Arkansas as the cleanup man. We knew him as William Barr. We didn't know him really as Bill Barr. Same guy, same guy, a lot younger. So it was he a cleanup man when he went to Cyprus? Was he really working for Trump, or was he the cleanup man for Obama? Hmm. He was also a big part of Benghazi, as well as Hillary and Janet Reno. They were a part of Waco. They were a part of Ruby Ridge. And what's odd is when there was problems with the FBI and their tactics, of course it was redacted. And who other than had a hold of the documents? William Barr. So we got to think about that. Um, I hope I didn't go past my stuff here. Um, okay, so now more on Nancy. The Democrats will demonize Wall Street CEOs as greedy, and they've lined their own pockets, both before and after a lot of the crisis that's happened with the financial crisis. Um, the former House Speaker allegedly gained financial reforms to boost her own personal stock portfolio. A brewing scandal complicated basically after Pelosi staffer left to lobby on behalf of credit card giant Visa. Pelosi delayed bringing to the House or the floor of the bill lucrative swipe fees for Visa and other credit providers. The bill couldn't have come at a worse time for Visa, but it planned to launch an $18 billion public stock offering. So stalling the Hill action became a priority. The San Francisco based company curried favor with Pelosi and pumping cash into her reelection efforts, earning its CEO a rare one time meeting with the Speaker. At the time, um, Visa offered her husband a VIP cut of the part of the company. Now, Paul Pelosi jumped at the offer, buying 5,000 shares at $44 initial price. And in a couple days, he scored to $64, where Pelosi bought 15,000 more, reinstalling the total value investment to 5 million at the end. So, why do you think Nancy Pelosi did where they weren't going to be held accountable for insider stock trade? That's what that was. That's what I just read to you is insider stock trading. So, of course, sign it in that they can do this. So, what did they pretty much do? Um, they remember a lot of the penny stocks. They would start this up. A bunch of them will buy it, and then all of a sudden they pour everything they can into it, uh, and it rises the price of the stock. Well, then they sell out at a high price, which they only paid the pennies on, and uh, and they did it before they would even release it to the public. So they made all the money, and then what it would do, it would break the bank. They said. Not only that, she was a big part of Franklin Rain, or Fannie Mae CEO through 2005, who helped plunge the government into a mortgage giant, into supreme abyss. And of course, we know they were cooking the books for Fannie Mae. Clinton's housing chief, who strong armed countrywide financial into signing fair lending. We had Rahm Emanuel, who served on the Freddie Mac board, where he pocketed over 300,000, making millions, working for an investment banker in Chicago that was what part of the subprime loans in which Nancy Pelosi had put into place. Remember Barney Frank, one of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mae's biggest protectors? Well, guess who they were? That was political donations on Capitol Hill. And when you look back into it, who's underneath it all? Well, none other than Nancy Pelosi. Um, so as you could see, it goes on and on. Anything that had to do with visa, or housing programs, or financial programs, anything that was to help the poor, she was a part of it, and they never really did help. They went and stopped, or they slowed down, or had to be re-established because it was so corrupt. And guess what? When they were found to be corrupt, guess what happened? It's supposed to be looked into by Congress and Senate. No, didn't happen. Paul Pelosi, the only son of Nancy and Paul Pelosi, he's a junior, was hired by several firms that were subject to both federal and state probes, and has connection in a host of fraudsters, rule breakers, conviction, criminals. Although he has never been charged himself, he always seems to slip by. Someone's always called that judge, called that DA before he would be in any serious in trouble. And then of course, he escaped. And then in 2007, he was hired by a senator vice president by Obama based Info USA, a database marketing company invested by Iowa Attorney General's office several years earlier for allegedly selling consumer data to fraudster. He was found for hacking. And not only that, but lots of money came up missing from where he was working. So what was the hacking all about? What was the hacking about? The data was then used to scam sick and gullible um, elegi- elderly out of money, it was alleged. The investigation was closed. No arrests were made. But Pelosi Jr., who was paid a salary of 180,000 per year, joined the firm after the probe ended. In October 2013, he joined FOG Fuels and biofuel companies before they looked into the company and found their previous company, and found no wrongdoing. So when he hacked, he frauded, he scammed gullible elderly people out of money. Um, he left, went to work for another company, and lo and behold, then they decided, and they found no wrongdoing by anybody that worked there at that time. And he's basically, um, after the biofuel company, just prior to him being named the vice president of the company founder Paul Marshall, that he replaced and friends with, was charged by SEC for allegedly stealing 3 million from elderly investors. Sounds like the Whitewater scheme that the Clintons did, where they sold property that they never were going to put any houses on, took their money, and blamed it on the McDougalls. Huh. All right, let's move on to Camilla Harris. Now, I grew up in California. Nobody liked her. She dated many stars, political men, even judges. Um, uh, no one outside of her neighborhood ever really heard who she was when she was even running. Uh, she became um, she dated Montel Williams' girlfriend, um, Geraldo. She was introduced to the paparazzi. Um, she dated an NBA star, but she somehow went on to be a senator. But then there was Willie Brown. Now, Camilla Harris, even before that, when she, was up and coming and she was dating all these guys because she was into politics a little bit, not making much, maybe 15, 20,000, 30,000 a year, doing what she was doing. All of a sudden, when they started looking into her bank account, was starting to see 90,000 a year, and it was coming from her boyfriends, Montel and Geraldo was one, the NBA guy. Now, Judge Joe Brown was the one that really put the nail in her coffin. He got to meet her family. She was getting very serious with him after, uh, it was either before or after, I think it was before Willie Brown. And Willie Brown, that was an affair, folks. And he went on to help her not only, well, I'm going to back up to, let's go with Judge Joe Brown. He said, we knew her as she dated lots of men, made lots of money. I don't, I'm trying to figure out how to way to put this because I can't say the HOE, yeah, HOE kind of thing. But that's what she was known for in California, folks. Gasp. That's what she was known for in California by us. We knew she was sleeping, dating, making 90,000 a year of many, many, many boyfriends. And it was Judge Joe Brown that exposed this. And not only that, but he said he met her mom and dad. Her dad was and his folks were from India. Her mom was born and her folks from India. She's Indi she's Indian, folks. He said that whenever it rise to the occasion, then she's African American Asian or African American and Indian. No, she is born Indian. We knew this out in California. We all knew it because that's what she said. She was proud of her heritage early on. We don't know what happened. So you see what she was. Now, when it came to Willie Brown introduced her to the DC circuit. At that point, she was making over 150,000 a year with political men that she was dating, lots of them. And even was introduced to Joe Biden early on, early on by Willie Brown. And so she was a date escort for Joe Biden for many years. Did he owe her a favor? Indian. Dad wasn't Jamaican. He was Indian. Judge Joe Brown met her dad, and this is what he was told. And he's getting sick and tired of the lies from Camilla Harris. She was one of the worst for going against marijuana and African Americans in San Francisco. I mean, she was harsh. I mean, when you want to talk about being a racist, she sicked the police department, the DA's office, public officials on African Americans. We knew it. And we couldn't get her out. She would have an approval rating of about 20% and win by 80. It's like Pelosi and Feinstein. They win theirs too with 100% of the vote, 110% of the vote. We never could understand. And it wasn't just, with Pelosi, Feinstein, and a lady named Barbara Boxer. It was a little three little, uh, we called them the three little stinky pigs because they were so corrupt. And we knew it. We knew it. But did they listen to us? No. And they all went on, except for Barbara Boxer. I think she got in some trouble early on, but they all went on to be, look, wow. And it's not just it's not just Judge Joe Brown that said it. Willie Brown has mentioned all this info, and so has many politicians in California. We all knew it. The voters knew it. Everything about her has been nothing but a lie. And everybody hated that giggle. We all did. We hated it early on, and we still hate it. Um, oh boy. Um, did she? I don't really want to say this because this is part of the report. Did she date her way to the top? Did she? You know, um, um, I can't really add any more to that because I've exposed everything about her. Um, she's adopted kids. She has two Jewish kids, I believe. I'm going off this on the top of my head. And her newest husband, does he know about this? That would be the question. We don't know, but I suppose she dated him too. And when she was doing the debates, she accused him of being a racist. She called him a racist dog. And uh, she knew he was a big part of Senator Byrd. She knew both him and her were blocking and going after African Americans in their early careers. They knew this. They're two little peas in a pod. And why deceive? Well, because they want that vote. And Delaware was a proud slave owning state, and she threw that in his face. But yet, um, it's okay. It's okay. Um, Chuck Schumer. How about Chuck Schumer? You guys think he really did anything wrong? Well, um, his this is a basically this has been exposed quietly in DC that his dark money group hauls in a record of 92 million from hidden donors. Democrats greatly benefit from anonymous donors, and they attack GOP over dark money. But come to find out, Chuck Schumer raked in 92 million from anonymous donors to flood groups with money to the elect Democrats, is what records show. But we haven't even got to look at Schumer yet. They have now. You could see why when Trump was in office, they all freaked out. They all freaked out. Why? Because it would have started the exposing them, all of them, for what they've been doing. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface with the head guys. Now, a nonprofit affiliated with Schumer's Senate Majority PAC pocketed the cash between 2019 and 2020, and the most recent released tax forms show that he pushed millions to other liberal groups during this time. And the New York Democrats, PAC, and nonprofit that worked on voter engagement efforts. But the left wing group pulled in a record cash. Schumer and other Democrat politicians assailed over Republicans over their use of dark money. And everybody wonders, okay, so where did they get all this money? So, I'm going to even go back further. Even in from 2015 to 2018, before this last time, they got 69 million in revenue. And before, okay, so what he does is he says, "Oh, I only got 1 million for um, what was sent to my campaign." Okay, but before that, then they spread it out. He gets the money in, and he holds on to it. uh, Makes a lot of interest, makes a lot off of it, sends it to different liberal groups like those foundations that sponsor Antifa. Or what about those groups that are helping to get more Democrat judges or DAs into office, put into their campaigns thousands and thousands of dollars, dark money. Schumer and other Democrat politicians, meanwhile, demanded that this is what the GOP was doing. And then he was caught in Rhode Island with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and other Democratic politicians. And what did they do? They started dumping uh, they started exposing, not dumping, exposing low level Democrats for, let's say, pornography. Oh, they stole something. Oh, they did this, they did that. Let's take them out. And then when it got in front of the courts, in front of the judges, those cases were dropped. So they all got away with it. You see, and everybody thinks that George does it all on his own. Well, no, they got to have a politician or politicians in office for him to be able to get away with this. Because when they give, it's just like what I learned with the Clintons being here. They get the money, they give it out, and it goes all over the place before anybody, it can be seen on their taxes. And then right behind it is a payment of lots of money that what do? They give it to the family members, even their grandkids. Wow. What a bunch of great politicians we've got. Schumer has also pushed for the People Act, which contains provisions for political nonprofits disclosure. Um, and then what it is it's the nonprofit to where the bill calls for nonprofits to file disclosure reports. And it's also an election commission. And they push more than 10,000 into election related activities. The majority forward maintains close ties to Schumer Senate PAC, which raises cash to elect Democrats to Congress. Um, J.B. Poorish, a longtime Schumer ally, is president of both Majority Forward and of this office. Um, it's the Senate Majority PAC's largest donor through 2020 election cycle. Democrat Senate candidates benefit from. And this is dark money, folks. Well, what they decided to do is when they were doing the 10,000 at a time, well, he ended up receiving close to $51 million for his part. They've pushed 4.3 million in donations and added another 155,000 for wages for the 2022 cycle for those that work in these offices. New York Times recently reported that 15 of the most active Democrat dark money nonprofits spent 1.5 billion in 2020, comparison to um, 15 of the most active Republican nonprofit spent um, uh, maybe they say 9 mil. What about Maxine Waters? Um, you know, she swung 12 million in federal bailout money for her husband, ailing minority bank. Yeah, it was the One United Bank for poor lending practices and excessive executive pay and perks. She is one that is will hire and spread her offices all over um uh, Southern California and DC, and no one in her offices let me just say they're all family members, and they all make an excess of 6 million a year. That's just work campaign offices, folks. Waters remains one of Washington's most outspoken critics of greedy Wall Street bankers, or how horrible Trump is. Well, why? Because Trump is the one that found out that what she was paying her office workers and who they were. So uh, that is just a drop in the hat, in the hat, folks. Shift. He makes his money over in Pakistan. He has been taking donations and set up financial institutions over in Pakistan. Now, he has been funneling money from DC, and I'm not quite sure. Well, this came under WikiLeaks that he was putting money into Pakistan, and William knows this one. What's Pakistan known for? For ISIS, Al Qaeda, Taliban. Now, of course, we were looking at Egypt was getting very upset at the Bush administration over Taliban in Egypt. Then we seen them move over, and then all of a sudden we were going after Afghanistan. But in the meantime, that's when Schumer and Schiff started doing business relations in Pakistan. So as you could see, even Adam Schiff has a lot to hide, and he's making, they say, millions, millions and millions of dollars out of Pakistan from the Pakistani government. Um, so dark money, Chuck, yeah, yeah. So folks, that is it. I was hoping to get through the politicians. And that gives you an idea of what we're looking at. And then there's still more. We're, like I said, we got probably, when I looked, I counted close to 70 in Congress, 70 in Senate that are not there for our country. They are making millions and billions of dollars for themselves. They're funneling it. A lot of these people were put into office in 1992 as the Clintons went around the country. And all of a sudden, these people had millions of dollars for their campaigns. And who were they? The ones I mentioned tonight. Except for Barbara Boxer. I don't know. I guess she expected her to be the next in line. And how did the Clintons get all that money? Well, from the cocaine for guns and cocaine for cash here in Arkansas. And it's still today. Now there's rumors by state troopers here in Arkansas that it could be one of the biggest hubs for fentanyl in this country. And none other than the same type of planes um, with we call them hidey holes on them, or ways to conceal, the same type of Air America pilots, uh, and the same airstrips that could be used, still bringing in the cocaine and marijuana into our state. They just keep moving them. One of these days, we're going to catch them. All right, folks, I thank you very much for watching. There's still another report coming. Um, a dark future. What does all this mean with these politicians? What do they have planned? Because we haven't even got to Klaus Schwab and what the World Economic Forum has in store. All of these people not only are connected with China, but we even see that they're connected to other countries, even Russia, Iran. We had Kerry doing business in Iran. I didn't do Kerry. Well, Senator Kerry, he lied to Congress during Vietnam. He lied during and was in control of Oliver North's trials. Both of them lied. And then we find out he is the hub for the money from Washington, D.C. and to Iran. Of course, they say it's his family. No, we're finding out that he meets briefly with his family and a whole bunch with the Iranian officials. So, it's not that I didn't mention him. I had to throw him in at the end because this is what we're dealing with our politicians. And if we don't vote them out, they're just going to keep making money. They're going to keep making our life horrible. So the next and probably the final part to this special report is going to be on what are they planning on doing to us. And with China's help, they have an awesome plan, they think. All right, folks, I want to thank you all so very much for watching. Please share the show. And hopefully, there's stuff you heard that you didn't know about these politicians. Maybe it was everything you know. But maybe some of your friends say, well, whoa, how do you know? How do you know? Well, have them watch, have them listen. And you don't give them the intel that our government is hiding from us. Okay, folks, I want to thank you all very much. Subscribe, hit that like button, and share this report, all the parts of the report. And of course, we'll be here tomorrow night with trivia. I know y'all are needing a break. So trivia, we'll have the weather, and then Monday, I'll figure out if I want to finish up or if I want to bring Justice for All back in for a day and then finish up on Tuesday. And William got a break today, and he'll be back on Monday with his show. I'll pile all the stuff on a lot of stuff on him, and go back and listen to the beginning of the show. Yeah, the FBI was sent to shoot that guy. Sad. All right. Have a wonderful Thursday night, and we'll see you tomorrow. And God bless.